This is CBC Vancouver News.
It's just the most disgusting thing that Providence Healthcare can do to someone in their last hours and their family.
We don't want to see what happened to Sam happen to anybody else.
A family suing after their daughter was forced to transfer hospitals before she could receive medical assistance in dying. And
it breaks my heart to think about it because I'm sure I'm not the first, and I definitely won't be the last.
A Nanaimo woman taking BC's coroner's service to task for not performing an autopsy after her husband suddenly died. Plus,
we're expecting hundreds of units of housing on this site.
A new life for the ICBC headquarters in North Vancouver. More on the plans for the big and partly empty building. Hello, I'm Jessica Cheung. Thanks for joining us. We'll start tonight with breaking news. One man is dead after a stabbing this evening in Burnaby. It happened at around 6 p.m. on 1st Avenue near Boundary Road when police got reports of a stabbing. And when they got on scene, they found a man on the ground, unconscious with life-threatening injuries, and he later died on scene. The province's homicide unit has been notified and has taken over the investigation. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. The family of a Vancouver woman who was forced to transfer hospitals before she could receive medical assistance in dying, or MAID, is suing the BC government and Providence Health. As Katie DeRosa reports, they claim the Catholic Health Authority's ban on MAID in its facilities violates the Charter of Rights for patients.
She just wanted to die with dignity.
Samantha O'Neill's parents say she had so much to live for before being diagnosed with terminal cancer in 2022.
She was an active, caring, loving, vegan marathoner. She had more friends than you could ever count. She had a lot to look forward to.
But when the young woman's cancer became too much to bear, she asked for medical assistance in dying, or MAID.
So for her to arrive at dying by MAID wasn't something that she wanted to do at 34 years old.
Because O'Neill was treated at St. Paul's Hospital, she was told she'd have to be transferred to a different facility. St. Paul's is operated by Providence Healthcare, a Catholic organization that opposes medical assistance in dying and does not allow it in its facilities, even though it receives public funding. Instead, O'Neill was taken to a hospice where staff from Vancouver Coastal Health would be able to administer her end-of-life medication. But she had to be sedated to the point of unconsciousness before they could take her.
And we get to say goodbye while she's sitting on the commode. It's just the most disgusting thing that Providence Healthcare can do to someone in their last hours and their family.
O'Neill died on April 4th, 2023. Now, her family is suing the province and Providence Health, saying its policy banning MAID violates the charter rights of patients.
Forced transfers hurt people, and we don't want to see what happened to Sam happen to anybody else.
A Vancouver-based palliative care doctor who quit over Providence's ban on MAID is also part of the lawsuit.
The fundamental thing is Providence's religious beliefs are really being inflicted on me.
Jaya Raman says even though BC's health ministry is setting up a clinical space that allows MAID next to St. Paul's, forced transfers are still happening.
I've done 4 transfers this week, 4, all from St. Paul's. And these are very sick patients.
BC's health minister says he can't comment on O'Neill's case, but stresses the new clinical space will open up this fall.
But my concern is to ensure that everyone has very good access to service. That service will be provided by Vancouver Coastal Health, not Providence Healthcare.
Providence Health said in a statement it is reviewing the court filing to determine next steps. It says while MAID is not available in its facilities, it works with Vancouver Coastal Health to ensure patient requests for MAID are addressed. None of the allegations have been proven in court. Dying with Dignity Canada, a party to the lawsuit, says there are other faith-based agencies like Providence across Canada that also deny MAID services in their facilities. So a judgment here in BC could reverberate across the country. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
A Nanaimo woman is taking BC Coroner Service to task for not performing an autopsy after her husband unexpectedly died. The man, who was diagnosed with epilepsy, died suddenly at home. And as John Hernandez reports, his wife wanted to donate his brain for research, but never got the chance.
Instead of grieving, I was so stressed out about what was going to happen to his body. This one I took just a few days before he passed away.
Frustrations and sorrow afflict Nanaimo's Anastasia Waddell. The love of her life, Drew Madsen, died earlier this year.
Drew was so kind and sweet and incredibly thoughtful.
Madsen was diagnosed with epilepsy over a decade ago. It took them years to figure out what part of his brain was causing problems. He was a candidate for brain surgery, but in March, he suffered a seizure. After he seemed to recover, he went to take a nap.
He told me that he loved me, and then he went to sleep.
Waddell later went to give Drew his medicine, but he never woke up.
I knew he was gone, and I knew it was too late to do CPR. Because you can't CPR your way out of brain death.
Drew is believed to have died of SUDEP, or sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. Its cause is unknown and research is limited.
We don't understand exactly what happens, but we think of it as the brain shutting down after a seizure. Breathing gets affected, and then eventually the heart as well gets affected.
Waddell wanted to donate her husband's brain to the SUDEP registry for research. Tissue removals are typically done at autopsy.
Drew's brain would have been invaluable because it was sudden and it was exactly what they would have needed to study.
Autopsy requests were made by Drew's specialist, family doctor, and by Waddell, but it was ultimately denied by the coroner's service.
I haven't felt such rage in a long time. I could not understand why they would say no to that. It's a fatal medical event that bears research.
Earlier this year, a CBC News analysis found BC's autopsy rate has steadily declined since the early 90s, dropping from 22% in 1991 to just 3.2% in 2022. At the time, the coroner's service said mounting overdose deaths are to blame for the declining numbers.
We need to understand what's different about the people who die from SUDEP.
This SUDEP investigator, who we reached in New York City, says the lack of autopsies poses the biggest barrier when it comes to securing brain donations.
If the autopsy is not performed for religious reasons, because the medical examiner or coroner's office is just too busy with the drug epidemic, many of them just don't have capacity. And so we often don't get the information as to even basic findings.
After Waddell wrote a complaint to BC's Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth, he responded, saying, "Please accept my sincere condolences for your loss. I have taken the issues you raised in your letter to BC Coroner's Service senior leadership. She hopes the acknowledgement leads to change."
I don't want any other families to go through that. It was traumatizing and heartbreaking.
The coroner's service wouldn't comment specifically on Waddell's case, but said medical deaths at home don't meet investigation criteria. Waddell has a meeting scheduled with coroner's service leaders this week. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Celebrating a birthday.
Homicide investigators are looking into the death of a woman on the north side of Surrey that happened late last night. Police say it happened at around 10 o'clock. They were called to a home near 98th and 182nd A Street in Port Kells near the Fraser River for a report of a woman with life-threatening injuries. She was rushed to hospital and later died. Police say they did arrest a man nearby with the help of police dogs. It's not yet clear how he may be connected to the victim. Meanwhile, Vancouver police say they are looking into a stabbing that killed a 40-year-old man in the downtown east side last week. Investigators say they believe William James Coffin was attacked near East Hastings and Dunlevy streets. He was then found 2 blocks away near Gore Avenue and East Pender in Chinatown just after 1 p.m. on June 12th. Police say they arrested 2 suspects that same day, and they've since been released. Airbnb operators were in court in Victoria to try to preserve their operations as part of a petition against the province and the city. Short-term rentals like those listed on Airbnb have been restricted under Victoria bylaw since 2018. And in April, the province announced it would ban most short-term rentals that are not in an owner's principal residence. Enforcement against non-complying short-term units started on May 1st in order to free up space for the housing market.
Legislation cancels existing vested rights. It didn't take into consideration that people had been operating for years under municipality zoning and rules.
Property owners in Victoria can't rent homes for fewer than 30 days without a short-term rental license from the city. In North Vancouver, a big and partly empty building on the North Shore is set to get a new purpose. The BC government says it plans on turning the ICBC headquarters in Lonsdale into a mix of market and below-market housing. As Michelle Morton reports, the province says it will create several hundred new homes.
This ICBC building in Lower Lonsdale is getting new life. The Crown Corporation is moving its operations to Vancouver's False Creek Flats by May of 2027. On Monday, Premier David Eby announced the province has bought this 300,000 square foot building with plans to turn it into housing.
Once ICBC moves their last employees over to VCC Clark, so that we can get started right away. At this point, the best we can say is we're expecting hundreds of units of housing on this site. It will depend on the planning and the work that we have yet to do.
But Eby did not specify how many units there will be.
I'm okay with it. It's all empty now, so it's hopefully it'll go to, people that can afford to live in the neighborhood. And yeah, it's a good place to live right now. It's close to everything.
I think it's really good to have a mixed diversity of housing in the area. It just helps with real estate costs. It helps support everybody and just make sure people have a place to live.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because look at those. They have a commercial down there and then residence, units up there. So I guess, and they said the lack of housing. So.
One UBC business professor says underused real estate near transit is totally appropriate for an apartment tower.
So the basics is it's a home run.
But he says the key will be the split between the market and below market units.
But the best thing to do for the province would be to make these market rate rentals and use the proceeds to fund allowances for households that are really suffering. But I'll be interested to see what the mix actually is.
Eby says purchasing the ICBC North Shore headquarters is part of the province's $394 million commitment to deliver 10,000 homes near transit in the next 10 to 15 years. This development next to the Lonsdale Key Market is the government's third transit-oriented announcement in recent months. The other 2 are in Port Moody and Saanich. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Vancouver.
After months of construction in Gastown, repairs to the Maple Tree Square are now complete. Part of the busy square has been blocked off since March as crews repave the streets with bricks. It's welcome news for businesses there that say the closures cost them millions of dollars in revenue.
So that really was a hard pill to swallow, and now we're trying to see and hope that with the construction over, patios starting, more people coming to the neighborhood, we see those numbers turn around.
But now a city initiative that would see Water Street closed to cars until September is causing concern. Some businesses are worried the pilot project will impact their bottom line even more.
I'm in total agreement with fixing this brick here. Total agreement, it needed to be fixed, but open up the streets.
She says her business lost about 25% of its revenue during the construction. And if you're keen to get outdoors but wondering about crowds, now you can check the parking situation for two of Metro Vancouver's busiest parks before you go. The pilot project will give real-time parking information to people traveling to Boundary Bay Regional Park in Tsawwassen and Iona Beach Regional Park in Richmond. You can check online to make sure parking lots are not too full before you head there. Officials also hope it encourages more people to carpool, bike, or take transit to and from the parks. Metro Vancouver will consider expanding the technology to other parks after this pilot. People gathered in New Brighton Park in northeast Vancouver to mark a grim event. This year is the 66th anniversary of the Second Narrows Bridge collapse, one of the city's worst industrial disasters. On June 17, 1958, a support collapsed, toppling the bridge still under construction between Vancouver and the North Shore. 79 workers plunged into Burrard Inlet, some of them falling hundreds of feet. 23 people were killed in the disaster, most of them iron workers.
Your presence underscores our collective dedication to remember the legacy of these workers and to contribute to a culture of proactive collective safety, where every worker returns home safe at the end of the day.
There had been few safety precautions for the workers. A royal commission later established that two engineers who both died in the disaster had miscalculated the temporary support beams that had collapsed. It was renamed the Iron Workers Memorial Second Narrows Bridge in 1994. A historic venue that became a fixture for the German community in Vancouver was completely demolished earlier today. The Alpen Club building on Victoria Drive was built in 1950 by a group of immigrants from the Alpine regions of Germany and Austria.
My favorite part is that it's just a gathering place for everybody. And everybody is a place of fun, of enjoyment, of sharing stories. There isn't a person that you don't run into that has a story. Oh, I got married here, or I came to one of the dances, or I was at Oktoberfest.
The club housed ballrooms and multiple restaurants, including the famous Deutsches Haus restaurant. Lepore says while it's sad to say goodbye, the building was falling apart and needed a makeover. In its place will stand a 5-story mixed-use building, which will include rental residential units and a new Alpen Club that's set to open by early 2026. Coming up, the BC Wildfire Service says recent rain helped reduce fire behavior, but crews are staying vigilant. More on that story after the break. Welcome back. The BC Wildfire Service says recent rain has helped in the fight against wildfires.
It does reduce fire behavior in the short term, allowing firefighters to make even more progress along those priority areas on the fire perimeter and then along major transportation routes and corridors. So there are several challenges that do remain, specifically the extreme drought. We're in a drought that has been kind of prolonged over the past 2 years, so that certainly makes firefighting efforts quite challenging.
She says the Patry Creek and Parker Lake wildfires near Fort Nelson are no longer out of control. For now, firefighters are focusing on protecting power lines and critical infrastructure near the out-of-control Noga Creek fire east of Fort Nelson. And with the extreme drought and a hot, dry summer on the horizon, crews are staying prepared.
The focus right now, I would say the majority of fire activity through our fire center is in the northeast section. We do have initial TAC crews ready for any new starts to go put out any new fires started that we might see with lightning strikes or human caused. But we are also working on pre-existing holdover fires.
Province-wide, there are more than 100 active wildfires, roughly 90 of which are in the Prince George Fire Centre. And here's a live shot of the Port of Vancouver. As you've just heard, rain is helping with the wildfire efforts, but how much and will it last? Darius Madavi will have those answers and your full forecast next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC is the proud media partner of the Squamish Nation Youth Powwow, July 5th to the 7th. The cultural event welcomes everyone to a vibrant celebration of vivid colors, rhythmic music, and a strong sense of community. Tickets at SquamishNationYouthPowwow.com. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
The first all-Canadian team has won the race to Alaska. Team Malolo finished this afternoon at around 2:30, taking home the grand prize on their custom trimaran named Dragon. It's their third attempt at winning the race, and the race to Alaska is an engineless, no motor, no support adventure race spanning over 1,200 kilometers from Port Townsend, Washington to Ketchikan, Alaska, making a pit stop in Victoria. Team Malolo won $10,000 in cash for their first place win.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And now it's time to check in with our Darius Madavi for our weather forecast in the province. It was a pretty dreary and wet and cold weekend. Maybe that's good. How does that kind of go into our wildfire situation here in BC?
Right, yeah, I know the wildfire situation isn't great, but it does give us a reason to not mind the dreary weekends. I mean, we can mind them, but, you know, a little bit of good news. The good news is that fire danger has come way down in parts of the province where it was quite high at the end of last week when we started to get that rain, so that's really good news. That wet weekend, the cool temperatures we all suffered through, were worth it in the end, so that's good. Although this week they're going to start to come up again because, as you'll see, we're drying out. That cloud is going to be clearing out, not just here on the south coast, although it is, but across the province. Now, what this isn't showing you is there may be some convective showers that pop up as the ground warms up. That warm air will rise, and that may give rise to a few odd showers in a few places, but generally speaking, we're going to be fairly dry over the next few days. Maybe the odd chance of a thunderstorm in the Alpine, even here on the south coast. But beyond that, most of that activity will happen in parts of the interior. There we go. Just took a second to buffer in. Mostly in the southern interior, as well as other parts of the province, maybe up in the Peace and up in the northwest, the north coast. We may see some thunderstorm activity, especially tomorrow, but potentially returning on Wednesday as well. But generally, we're going to see drier conditions. Things are going to be sunny pretty much every morning, and then we just may see that convective activity pop up in the later hours in the afternoon, evening. Could be severe times, though, as we saw earlier today. People in the interior are very well aware could be severe, and much like we saw actually with some activity on the weekend here on the lower mainland as well. Now, if we take a look at the temperatures, those are going to start coming up over the next few days, recovering back to seasonal, and then far exceeding seasonal as we get towards the end of this week. So very nice warm end to the week this week, but we may see some shower activity return on the weekend. It's too soon to say for sure, so I'm not going to promise anything one way or the other. Now, again, sunny conditions across the board, but some lightning likely to come in the afternoon, evening for some places, at least in the province. In terms of 5-day forecast here, Jess, again, just sunny skies, sunny skies as temperatures climb, and then maybe we start to see some precipitation on the weekend, but I wouldn't count on it just yet.
Okay, we'll welcome the rain for now, but that sun is looking pretty good. So yeah, thanks so much, Darius.
Thanks, Jess.
And that is your late night news for this Monday, June 17th. For news anytime, anywhere, download the free CBC News app, and you can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Thanks for watching and have a great night.